them down because I have so much to say. After hearing everybody talk here, you wonder, is the Shyam that Jim Davis knows, or Wasim, or Roshi, or Ritesh, they've all had a piece of his life. They've seen him a certain way, they've seen him interact and respond. Now, what was he really like when he came home? When it was just me and him sitting on the bed together with his laptop open and me just glad that he's here and not at work. He was just the same. Absolutely the same. You asked me, did he ever complain? He'd walk in through the door and I knew he'd had a big review, and I'd say, how did it go? He's like, Jim ripped us apart, and he would smile. And I'd be like, that's, but he's like, so what's for dinner? Something smells like chicken, so yeah, that's how it was. As Roshetta mentioned, Cheta is what we call brother in Malayalam. And to Shyam, anyone who was older to him was a Chetan, and anyone who was older to him, a woman was Chechi. To me, that was like, why can't we just call them their names, And then I realized it's not a title. It's what he had felt for the people he met and the relationships he created. There were no hollow ones. It was genuine, as my brother said. It was just from deep within. That friend Ritesh talked about, that was there, when no one else was. That's who he is. He's somebody you could always count on. No matter how busy he was, I knew early on that he loved to work. And honestly, that was one of the most important things I looked for in a life partner, is somebody who enjoyed what he did. I was not ready to handle someone coming home every day complaining about what he was supposed to enjoy. And I truly got what I asked for. And when he'd come home and he'd have worked really hard, he'd stay up in the night, all of that was there, but when I needed him, he was there. As he was there for Ritesh, as he was there for many friends, he was there. And that's what I remember Base's wife, good friend, she would often see how Shyam worked and ask me, like, do you not say anything to him? How do you even, live through, just tolerating all of the amount of time he works? And I said, but when I want him, he is there. And I'm so proud that he pursued his passion and his dreams, and I wholeheartedly supported him in everything he did because I knew he loved it, And there's nothing more gratifying than being supportive of someone who knows what they truly want. And that is who he was. I haven't even got to what I've written yet. And as Praveen said, he was an extremely special person on so many levels. He always said the same thing to me too, I have no expectations. And honestly, let me tell you, when he first said that to me, I thought that was the worst thing I could hear. Because to me, where there's love, there's expectation. Without expectation, that's being insensitive. That means nothing matters. No, it means that everything matters. Everything. Not just what you want, not what everybody needs, but everything, every little thing, every little interaction, every little gesture matters. And as Gia said, can't run away from that sweet tooth. The first time I saw him pile up, he said he's having some ice cream. 3 scoops on a single cone. That's what it was. And I was like, oh, those were the days I could barely manage a spoon. It wasn't until I got pregnant with Keshav that I was passing Kopp's frozen custard twice a day and going in each time and treating myself to that scoop or 2. And as we're here today, I've shared this with many of you, but this is where Shyam used to bring Keshav after his Sunday class to enjoy that ice cream. That was his thing with them. I mean, there was one day they turned up home really late, and I said, "What were you doing?" And he said, "Oh, we just stopped for some kulfi, Indian ice cream." And I said, "Oh," and I knew that was going to be a tradition, and it was. And it's such a beautiful day, such a beautiful place that we've gathered here, and I can't think of a better time and place to share his memories. Allison said that, a lot of his qualities are very much what we all start off with. Yeah, and we lose it so easily. Because we get somewhat seasoned to life by our experiences. We get easily discouraged. We are somehow easily influenced by what is negative, and we carry it with us. Over the last month, as I've reflected on him, and many things that I'd always known about him just seemed more apparent, seemed more strong and amazing. He never looked back. I have never heard him talk of a moment 2 months ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, that he lamented on or felt he could do better, or even worried about, or I did that a lot. I do that a lot. I think I have one eye looking forward and one eye looking back and nothing in the present. But he brought me to the present. He brought me to the now. Things that we can control. And at first I thought that, don't you think you've done anything wrong? Don't you think you could do anything better? Do you not want to be a better person? Do you not, what does it mean when you don't reflect on something? And he was never one to explain himself. Again, at times I misunderstood that it was because he didn't feel like he needed to explain. No, because that wasn't him. This didn't stem from something where he thought so greatly of himself, or he had amazing self-esteem and self-confidence, but it did not come from looking at himself. It came from looking at others. And as Ritesh mentioned, that mirror, what a beautiful thing for you to say. It truly was. He reflected the goodness in all of us, right back at us. The strength and confidence that he'd shown, it was because that's what he believed in you, me, everyone he saw. The greatness was what he thought of the world. And the fact that here and now is what we have. We do our best right now, or we don't do it at all. And that's Shyam. He didn't need to reflect on anything because he did his best. What is there to reflect on? He's did my best. And if there's something, the next time I would do my best at that time, which would be even better. He was confident of it. He didn't question himself. He didn't question anything. I had the questions. And you wondered how he could stay up late and, he'd have a long day at work, he'd leave pretty early, he'd come home, committed to spending some time with us. And, it was not easy with Keshav and Shreya and me and all the things that we wanted of him. But he did go back to work, not because he was forced to, because he enjoyed it. That was his passion. But I always say that I trained him for it, because, I was not easy to be with. I would have so many things to talk about, to ask, to expect of him, and, I would say, like, answering Jim's questions was simple compared to all of that. It's not, you've heard the same thing from everyone pretty much in one way or another. It's because that's what you saw is what you got. Literally, that's it. There was nothing, there were no two sides to that coin. There was nothing that happened, in the confines of our home that you didn't see or feel. And the transparency, it's because he had nothing to hide. He had nothing to be ashamed of. He had nothing that he wasn't proud of. Whatever he associated himself with, he did it with his entirety, with all his integrity, and that is who he was. He had his opinions, he had his feelings, he had strong views on so much. And it's not that we always agreed, but he knew how to stand his ground in what he believed in. And that's Shyam. My Shyam. So now I get to this, that I've written, I was really fortunate to spend the most precious years of my life with someone who saw a silver lining in everything. Everything. Even airplane food. Even airplane food. Never fazed, no challenge insurmountable, no complaints or judgment about anything or anyone. He used to really, when we'd pull up to a toll booth in the middle of the night, he'd greet the person, "Hi, hello, how are you?" And even they would be surprised, like, "Dude, don't you just want to drive off? Just hand me the change." He had that smile that he woke up with, that lasted till he turned in for the night. And every time he'd wake up and rush to work, no matter how early it was or whatever he had to do, he'd always come by my bedside and give me a kiss. And many times I pretended like I wasn't awake, because he liked to know that it was unseen, it was not for an acknowledgement. It was just because that's just what he did. He was driven by his love of life. He loved his life. Just very simply put, and exploration. Anything he delved into, he got into with his heart and soul, as all of you have heard him talk endlessly on so many topics. He truly enjoyed everything he was part of. Anything he did with all his heart. He believed in the best in people. He believed in the best life had to offer. And one could argue that only the best came his way. I often called him a dreamer. It's really unreal to live with somebody like him, because as much as you've heard about Shyam and you've heard from my brother, I was completely the opposite. I am completely the opposite, if you just look at features and characteristics. And I'm like, how is it even possible, humanly possible, to be him? But his thoughts and his beliefs were always, always rooted in a deep sense of reality that he faced without fear or reservation. Just being witness to how he went through his day was just uplifting. I mean, how could you not? I mean, things could be falling apart all around us, and he'd still have his smile, his shoulders held up high, chin up, and we'd get through this. I think the only time he ever felt fear was probably after he met me, and I've given him many a chance to at least feel that tinge of fear, but otherwise he'd never known it. In 12 years of being together, my heart would always skip a beat when he'd walk through the door. Every time. Or even at the remote chance of spending an extra few minutes with him, like, I'd drop the kids off from school and I'd pull into the garage and I'd see his car was still there, and I'm like, oh, he's taking some calls from home, and I get to spend those 3 minutes just hanging around him while he's talking to a whole bunch of people, but he's there, I just never got enough of him. His beautiful spirit was fuel for my soul. He lit up our world. But our life wasn't an Instagram feed, no. It was messy, it was real. He never got the grocery list right, ever. Even when there was just one thing. I'd often wonder, how could you always pick the wrong thing, How could you? And the dishwasher was invariably never loaded just the way I liked it. I always had my complaints. I always did. He had none. None. I was his world, even more than the kids, and he never, ever hesitated to let me know that I was everything to him. As great as his accomplishments were, and as unaccomplished I would often feel, he always made me feel like there could be no better person, no stronger person, no one more successful. And it wasn't these hollow words. He'd really be able to convince me. And I always wish I could see myself through his eyes, because it was the best picture ever. We were a team. We thrived in our differences. Like I said, we were never similar, but we thrived in our differences. We wholeheartedly adapted to each other because we were committed to our happiness. When I would fight with him, because it was only me, it was never him. So I can't even call it a fight. When I would do my grumbling, because no, Shyam never raised his voice, never said anything disrespectful, never even looked my way with anything more than love. But because I deserve the best, right? And every time I would have a fight with him or whatever, what I would be really upset about was that we were losing that time together. That those 10 minutes that we were discussing something which in my head I knew was completely irrelevant, I just wanted him to say the right thing and so we could move on to cuddling in bed. That's what I just wanted, but I had to make myself, as my brother said, I'm opinionated, I have my thoughts, I have to get it out. And Shyam was always that good listener. No matter what I had to say, no matter if what I said was totally against what he believed, what he stood for, he listened with a patient ear. Never judged me, never made me feel ashamed of what I was going through. It takes somebody truly special for that. True partners. In this last month, I've begun to understand what a partner really is. And that's what he was. That's what we were. He was my greatest champion that truly believed in me even when I struggled to. There was so much I wanted to emulate, but it takes that certain strength of character and an inner peace to even try to understand his ways. And yet, I know that my short time with him has made me better, has transformed me. Although my brother might think differently. Maybe not enough. But I know that I see life in a completely different light because of him. I see hope and possibilities where once I would have seen emptiness. In him, I found the greatest gift of the purest, unconditional love I will ever know. The laughter which set everything right. An unwavering, calm strength that was just him. No matter how I feel, no matter how hard it is, I've promised myself that every day, going forward, I will look for that silver lining. Today I see it in all of you. You've all come together to honor him and stand with me as I navigate the toughest time in my life. I find myself in a place I never imagined I would be. But the love and support that I've received from each and every one of you and those who could not make it today has truly renewed my faith in life. It's the legacy of goodwill that Shyam has left behind. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, being there for me and the children. But don't just hold us close at this time of need. I request you all to continue this journey with us to celebrate milestones and anniversaries in the years ahead and be part of our lives. Be our silver lining always. Thank you.
I think with that we in the formal part of the program. And I think if you'd like to meet Keshav and Shreya, I guess they are here. So the rest of the families as well, so feel free to spend some time. And thanks a lot for being here. And I know you have traveled miles and miles, and like Sharada said, we really appreciate that and very grateful to having all of you here. Thank you. There's one more housekeeping announcement. Some of the visitors would like to have a tour of the temple, and I think it has been arranged to start at 3:30. Do you know where they are? Right, just outside. Thank you.
Jim, right? Nice to meet you. Yeah, personally. Hopefully most of you good. He's telling me everything. Yeah.
This is Shreya.